Hi guys, welcome to my channel. Bonnie B here. I'm just going to go over with you a cape with detachable hood tutorial. Let me know what you think, leave any comments. Was this helpful? Yeah. Apart from scissors, marker, tape, needles and thread, you'll also need some press studs to attach the hood so that it's attachable and detachable. So you want to make sure the width of your material is folded in half before you measure out how high you want your hood. I made mine 23 inches and I got that number by laying down on the material so that I could see how high it needed to be from my shoulders. Make sure you lay down a little further than I did on here so that the hood actually comes up over your head. So that's why I recommend more the 23 inch. But it obviously depends on your own measurements as well. So once you've measured how high you want your hood, then you need to measure how wide you want your hood. So I did 18 inches wide, and so that'll be the width of what your hood and your cape will kind of be around the neckline. I use a marker to dot rather than do a steady line, because then if you make a mistake, then it's not going to ruin your material. Then make a mark halfway across the top so that I can then make marks going all the way down the center to the 23 inch mark, so that when I cut across that line, I know it's 23 inches the whole way across and I'm not going kind of diagonally through my fabric. You can then line up your bottom kind of dots to make sure your 23 inch line is pretty straight. Cut along your line so that it is 23 inches from the top to where you're cutting. Once I finish cutting, I then mark out 18 inches along this line, so you end up with a 23 inch by 18 inch piece of fabric. Go ahead and cut this portion out. So you're left with this extra portion that you can use for making cuffs or boot covers with as well. You'll then need to finish the edges of these short pieces on both sides, as well as sew the top seam together. So that's your hood finished. If you don't want it to be detachable, then you would attach the bottom hem, which is unfinished, directly to the hood. Otherwise, you then also need to finish the bottom hem so that it's nice and neat, so that when you detach it, it looks nice and won't fray. So I'm talking about this hem here that's unfinished at the moment. I just went and finished that so it's nice and neat. Once you finish your hood, you then need to decide what length you want your cape. So mine I measured for how long I wanted it. Do the same with however long you would like your cape. Again, repeat the process of marking however long dotting across the line and then cutting off the excess, so it's however long you need your cape, and then you can finish off the bottom and the sides of the cape along the seams so that they've got nice edges and won't fray. Make sure when you finish the edges that the raw sides are always facing on the inside, the side that you don't want to be seen on the outside. Once the raw edges have been sewn, it will look like this on the outside. When you're ready to sew it on, you'll need to put it facing down so it's a triangle shape. Next you'll need a needle and thread. I like to use a dark thread so that I can see where my gatherings are. You'll notice that the cape, when it's not folded in half, is much longer than the hood. That is good. So you're going to have to gather the top to make it fit on the cape, and it gives it that flowy kind of look. We're going to be using the thread to gather the cape, so lay out your thread just a bit longer than what the hood is. Use an in and out motion in the cape, about 1 inch apart. Try not to do much smaller or bigger, try and get them pretty even, and they will be your gathers. Continue this across the entirety of the width of the cape. You can see as I'm getting towards the end, it's starting to look a bit like a curtain with the gathers in the middle. Leave both ends of the thread loose, don't tie them off, so that you can just pull them out once you've finished sewing the gathers in place. Once you've finished gathering the material, you then need to line it up across the width of the hood. Leave the thread in the gathers so that you can adjust the gathers evenly throughout the width of the hood. Take your time to adjust the gathers, as it looks much nicer if they're evenly spaced. Once you're happy with the spacing of the gathers, you can then start to pin them. Make sure you actually pin in the gathers to hold them in place, otherwise once you sew, it'll just sew them out and push them along. You could kill two birds with one stone by hemming it now and sewing down the gathers at the same time, but I prefer to hem it and then sew down the gathers so that I know the hem is pretty straight, and for me that's just easier. So this is what it should look like once you have pinned down all the gathers. I place the pins in this way so that when I run the sewing machine over them, I don't necessarily have to take them out. Once you've sewn the gathers, then you need to put the press studs on. So I made sure that the press studs on the bottom half of the cape are on the inside so that when the hood is not attached, you can't see them. I attach the as you call females to the bottom part of the cape and the male part to the top part of the cape. I put the male on the outside of the cape. So that when the press studs are pushed together, they appear seamless on the outside of the cape. I made sure when I attached the press studs, I did both sides so that I could match them up perfectly. And I started with the end ones, then I did the center, and then I halved each of those to find out where a fifth is and fill in the gaps slowly each time I just halved. Once you have attached all your press studs, then your cape is finished. Hopefully this tutorial helped you. Let me know if it was helpful or if there's other things you would like to see in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe. See you next time.